Welcome back to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. On today's episode, we're going to talk about why the San Francisco Giants need to sign Cody Bellinger. Now, I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket and put everything on an organization needing to get one individual, but we've officially reached the point in the offseason that they are pretty much down to Cody Bellinger if they want to have a successful offseason. Now, the reason why I say specifically him and not some combination of, go get Matt Chapman and Reese Hoskins or, um, Blake Snell and some back end starter or something. The reason why I'm going to say specifically Cody Bellinger, even if that's the only move they make the rest of the offseason, is it makes far too much sense both on the field and off the field for them to sign Cody Bellinger. Now, we're going to start off with kind of the off the field in this case. So Cody Bellinger for the Giants would mean that they would actually have one bona fide star on their team. Because right now, you look at this roster and it is a boring roster. They've made some nice moves. I like some of what they've done. I really liked the Jung Hoo Lee signing. I think that was a really good one. He's a big unknown. That does drive some excitement. But since then, Tom Murphy, who cares? It's a backup catcher. The Robbie Ray deal, moving Haniger and DeSclafani for Robbie Ray, I think it was a solid move, and credit to Farhan for kind of admitting his mistakes with DeSclafani and Haniger and trying to make something out of that. So that could potentially pay off, especially the second half in the next couple of years beyond that. So I like that deal, and I like the Jordan Hicks signing. I think he's a quality arm no matter how they end up using him, whether it is as a starter or if they do end up having to move him back to the bullpen eventually. And I've said as much. And of those deals, what I really like is, Jung Hoo Lee is 25 years old. Jordan Hicks is 27 years old. So for the future, I do think they've made solid moves overall this offseason. Now, the problem is not one of these moves is moving the needle. None of these moves are going to drive fan excitement overall and get people to the yard. So last season, the Giants were 17th in attendance, and they drew 2.5 million fans, which at their peak in 2011, they drew 3.38 million. So there is a huge gap there on like what they can potentially make up. Now, I don't think there's anything they can do the rest of this offseason that's going to get 3.3 million fans to the yard, but there is no reason that they should be down at 2.5 million fans. They could easily add a couple 100,000 fans there if they just get at least one name that people want to come see, and then also are a competitive ball club. So how does he help? Well, number one, he's the one big name left that actually would get people to show up, and he would actually represent a giant swing for the fences and just absolutely attempting to hit a home run with a signing. Now, it could not work out. He could get injured again, which has been kind of his downfall in his career, have been the years that he has gotten hurt. But for a team that was willing to give $350 million to Carlos Correa a year ago, it makes zero sense that they're not willing to give 200 or 250 to Cody Bellinger. He would put butts in the seats. And even if he gets attendance up to 2.7 million, for example, that additional 200,000 fans would generate so much revenue for the Giants that his deal would essentially pay for himself. The average ticket price for a game at Oracle Park last year was $127. Now, I'm not a math major, but $127 times 200,000 is $25.4 million. And that doesn't even factor in merchandise, concessions, the additional parking people pay for, whatever, any of that stuff. Does not factor that in. That is strictly get in the gate. So he could have such a positive influence on this team in that capacity. Now, part of that if you're going to need, you need the name, but you also need to be competitive. Well, they've managed to be relatively competitive the last couple of years. I mean, they didn't finish really close, nearly close enough, but last year, for instance, they were 13 games over 500. In 2022, in June, they were 10 games over 500. So they have been able to be relatively competitive without the big names. And this is in all due respect to Logan Webb, but you need somebody that's playing every single day, not just a pitcher, unfortunately, if you're trying to get butts in the seats. So where does Cody Bellinger help? Well, he essentially helps on the field in every way the Giants need help. You're talking about a guy that has stolen 14 bags, 15 bags. Last year with the new rules, he stole 20 bags in 130 games. So you're talking about a guy who's athletic. He can help you, help you utilize the run game and kind of join the 21st century here. You're talking about a guy with pop. He's hit 25 or more home runs 4 different times in his career. And I believe he hit 12 in the 2020 shortened season where he only played 56 games because it was a 60-game season. So very likely would have hit 25 or more that year as well. So yes, he had a couple terrible seasons that I personally believe should be mostly attributed to the injuries that he suffered. The shoulder injury, the leg injuries. It was ugly. Now, I give him some props because he played through those injuries, which, yeah, did it probably, cost him money, and it cost him, might have hurt his team more than it helped, probably, because you look at the performance and the kind of the evidence is right there. But I do respect that as a player that he played through it. And, that's something that we've seen a lot of Giants players just milking it and being on the injured list for months. It's nice to see a guy that's going to try and tough it out. So you have that. You have a guy that every year that he has been healthy, he has been anywhere from a good to a great bat. He is a genuine middle of the order hitter on a team that lacks entirely anybody that has any business being in the middle of any order in the major leagues. The only guy on their team that you could probably make a case for, and it's really only if he reverts back to what he was before his shoulder injury, is Michael Conforto, who, when he was with the Mets, is probably a legitimate number 5 hitter. So if you get a guy like Bellinger, you can have him and Conforto, and then maybe Flores if he somehow miraculously performs like he did last year, which I think he's going to be a regression candidate. He's never hit that well in his career, so he's a good, solid hitter. Has had about an 8, like right around an 800 OPS a handful of times, but I don't think any of us should count on him replicating what he did in 2023. So Bellinger would actually give you a respectable middle of the order hitter. So he helps there. He also plays plus defense in 4 different positions. I think he'd be a Gold Glover at first base. That's my personal opinion. He's been a plus defender in center field, and with the addition of Jung-Hoo Lee, wouldn't be playing center field. They'd probably put him in right field, if anything, which is fine. It's Oracle Park. You basically need 2 center fielders anyway because of the size of the outfield. So if you put him in right field and have Jung-Hoo Lee in center field, suddenly you have some of the better range in all of the majors. So he improves your team defensively, offensively, and on the pass. And he puts butts in the seats, which is something they desperately need. So I haven't heard a ton as far as if they're truly in on him. There were a lot of rumors before the offseason started that they were really high on him and that they were wanting to go after him. And then it seems like it's been cooling off since then. I've heard more about Matt Chapman to the Giants than I have Cody Bellinger, though some, like Jim Bowden, think the Giants are still interested. One thing with the way the Giants do business, a lot of deals get done without you really knowing that they've even met with them. Like Jung-Hoo Lee, for instance, I think everyone knew they were interested, but nobody even heard that they were even somewhat close. And both with him and Robbie Ray and Jordan Hicks recently, they kind of just happened. So it is entirely possible the Giants are going after Cody Bellinger, and nobody's just really caught wind of it. So That is possible. I know there have been talks that Zaidi's working with Boris, but Boris represents basically all of the big names remaining on the market. So could be about Bellinger, could be about other players, but this is just a guy that, in my opinion, the Giants genuinely need. Now, aside from his uh, aside from his injury history, he does have some things that people have brought up as concerning, such as his exit velocities being down and his barrel percentage being down. But the reality is, when he comes out before the year and says, I'm trying to use the middle of the field more, which there's actually videos of him doing drills where he is trying to use the middle of the field more. And he makes a conscious effort to make adjustments and shorten his stroke. And he takes more of a put it in play and make good things happen approach at the plate. You should expect the exit velocities to drop. And his exit velocity with no strikes versus his exit velocity with 2 strikes is like 3 miles an hour lower. So it, he hit 280 with 2 strikes, for example, and he cut his strikeout percentage down to 15%, or I think it was 15.7, which it had peaked at about 30%. So what that tells me is he took an old school professional approach rather than this all or nothing approach that is super popular around baseball now and popular amongst the analytically driven crowd. And so yeah, some of his peripheral numbers went down, but overall, when you see the results and you see what he was, based on his approach, he was successful in what he was trying to do. So he's still a guy that can punish mistakes. He's still a guy that can hit 30 home runs in a given year. Maybe he doesn't do that in Oracle Park. Maybe he's more of a 20 to 25 home run guy. I don't really care if that's all he hits. He could hit 20 to 25 home runs. He could steal 20 bags. He could play great defense. And I think, if anything, Giants fans would love the guy. He's a high effort player. Part of why he's been injured. That's part of why I would probably move him to first sooner than later. But if they need to put him out and right for a couple years, that'd be totally fine. But he would also be a guy that right now, this is not a franchise that is even capable of signing a Juan Soto or a Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani or Yamamoto or whatever. Any of these guys that can get the money from any number of locations, they're not choosing the Giants because they're going to get their bag no matter where they go. So they're not coming to San Francisco. The evidence is there. We've had 5 or 6 stars in a row turn them down, big stars. So the guys that are attainable, like Cody Bellinger, who, yeah, he's going to get probably big money offers from places, but he's a guy that I think you could legitimately outbid Chicago, Toronto, Seattle, whoever might be interested in him. You can outbid those teams. Go get him, because then if you get him and let's say the Giants are a wild card team, or at least a wild card contender win, similar, maybe even similar to the Cubs last year. They win 83 games, 84 games, but they're an above 500 team with a guy like Cody Bellinger. They're going a little younger. How does that look for other stars in future years? How does that look for Corbin Burns next year, or Juan Soto, or Ha-Sung Kim? He'll be a free agent next offseason as well. How does it look for those guys who they're looking for their next team, and the Giants come calling, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we see what they're doing here. They have a young core of Logan Webb, Cody Bellinger, Tyro Estrada, Camilo Duvall, Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, Luciano, Patrick Bailey. You have this whole ton of players that are all between 23 and 28. And you have Corbin Burns, who's looking for his next team, and you're trying to upgrade your pitching staff, and he's going to look at that and go, okay, I like what they're trying to do here, but you've got to bring in the stars you can if you're going to do that. And getting a guy like him who's 28 years old, who should have 4 or 5 more years of his prime left, would be kind of an ideal candidate, because it helps you compete right now in 2024, field a competitive roster. But like getting a guy like Jung Hoo Lee, like getting a guy like Jordan Hicks. He should be in his prime for a while. So he's going to help you, hopefully, as you continue to add for the next 3 or 4 years. And hopefully can close the gap a little bit on the Dodgers and at least make yourself a franchise that can go into October and try and beat them in a short series. So that's my opinion on this. This is my take. Like, subscribe, comment, and tell me what your guys' thoughts are. I know he's kind of a polarizing guy. I understand the inconsistencies, but to me, it's a risk worth taking. So follow me on Twitter. Handle is going to be at EYD Show. And let me know your guys' thoughts. Thanks. Bye.